Oh, everybody, this is Dr. David Jockers, and we got a great topic today. We're going to be talking about how to use fasting strategies for natural cancer healing. So, cancer cells have kind of their own unique metabolic signature, and fasting, restricting food, actually has a huge impact on that metabolic signature. We know cancer is really a metabolic disease, so things we can do to impact the metabolism in a safe, non-toxic way really can be great strategies for basically weakening cancer cell growth and development and really helping even toxic oxidative types of therapies work more effectively. So let's jump into this topic. If you don't know me, my name's Dr. David Jockers. I'm a doctor of natural medicine. I specialize in helping people improve their metabolism, whether it's trying to lose weight, overcome chronic diseases, and really just live life at their full potential. I have a clinic called Exodus Health Center in Kennesaw, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. And this is my beautiful wife, Angel, my little boys, David and Joshua. And so when we think about fasting, you'll hear a lot of different titles like intermittent fasting. Really, all fasting is intermittent, meaning that like we don't fast and just stop eating for the rest of our lives. We're going to fast for periods of time. However, intermittent fasting is more so considered kind of this strategy where we're fasting for less than a full day. So maybe up to 24 hours, maybe a 12-hour fast, 16, 18-hour fast, maybe a 20-hour fast, and kind of like a 4-hour eating window, for example. That would be an intermittent fast. Once we get beyond one full day, 24 hours, we call it a block fast, or basically an extended day fast, where basically we're going multiple days or at least a day and a half without consuming food. And there's a lot of definitions when it comes to fast. Okay, for some people it's 0 calories, it's just water would basically be what a fast is. Basically a food fast. Obviously you'd be drinking water, but water doesn't have any calories. However, for others, as long as you're restricting or keeping your carbohydrate, net carbs, not including fiber, and protein content, under basically 5 to 10 grams, then you are getting the benefits of the fast. And so for me, where I stand on that, I'm more a proponent of number 2, where I've seen basically doing fat fasting have great benefit, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. But a lot of great benefits of fasting. Really helps boost up growth hormone, which helps with basically building new collagen. So we have better skin, hair, nails. We get a lot of benefits from that perspective. Better joints, healthier bones. Helps us burn fat, obviously, for fuel. So we have better physique. Actually helps preserve lean body tissue. A lot of people think that if they fast, they're going to lose their muscle tissue. But believe it or not, you become a better fat burner, and your body preserves circulating leucine levels. And leucine is a key branched chain amino acid that helps stimulate the body to preserve muscle mass. It lowers insulin. Insulin plays a role with inflammation, so it dramatically lowers inflammation in general. Reduces your cardiovascular risk because, of course, we know heart disease is related to inflammation, and obviously helps stabilize your blood sugar and insulin, so it lowers your diabetes risk. So a lot of great benefits to it. And, one of the best actual benefits of fasting is it just takes stress off the gut. For so many people, we're eating 4, 5, 6 meals a day, and we constantly have food going through our system. And not only does that stimulate insulin and keep insulin elevated, and insulin has to do with cell reproduction. So we get this kind of continual flow of cell reproduction when we do that. And that can be really, really problematic for the body. On top of that, we also are putting a lot of stress on the gut. And most people have leaky gut or some sort of inflammation in their gut. And our gut lining is only 1 cell wall thick. So when we have that constant wear and tear on the gut, it's much more likely that we're going to have more inflammation and leaky gut types of reactions. So fasting takes stress off of it, kind of like resting a sprained ankle. So if we've got a sprained ankle, we rest that ankle, obviously we're going to function and heal better. Our ankle is going to get better faster if we've got crutches, if we're keeping our ankle elevated rather than just walking on it all day. Well, it's the same thing with fasting in our gut. The gut's going to get better and healthier faster when we take stress off of it. On top of that, when we fast, it actually helps regulate the gut microbiome. A lot of good studies coming out on that. talking about how fasting helps kill off the bad guys and helps the body to preferentially favor good microbes that eat toxins and poop out B vitamins and different vitamin K and different things that are healthy for our body, as opposed to the pathogenic microorganisms. When we're constantly eating, they tend to rise, and those guys eat nutrients and poop out toxins that cause more inflammation, more damage to our body. So really good for the gut. 5 key benefits of fasting. Well, it improves immune regulation. So basically better balance between the arms or our immune system, Th1 and Th2, and between our T helper cells and our killer cells and our cytokine reactions. So better just overall immune regulation, better balance with our immune system. Fasting stimulates cellular autophagy, which is basically when the body breaks down and recycles old tissues. So basically kind of eats old tissue and rebuilds new, which is very, very important for good health. Cancer, things like Alzheimer's disease. These diseases are characterized by basically a inability to produce autophagy effectively. It improves genetic repair mechanisms. So our body's constantly trying to repair DNA. DNA is constantly being damaged by free radicals. Same thing with our mitochondria, which has its own set of DNA. It's constantly being damaged every day. We've got to have time to repair that. Fasting really helps improve that process. It improves insulin sensitivity. So when we have elevated insulin because we're constantly eating or we're eating foods that are higher carbohydrate or even high protein, we are going to get more inflammation along the cell membrane, which damages and scars up the insulin receptor. And so we become less sensitive. We need more insulin to be produced in order to get the desired effect of getting blood sugar, lowering blood sugar and getting the sugar into the cells. And so the more insulin we produce, the more inflammation we're going to produce, and we're going to have this strong drive for cell reproduction. The stronger the drive for cell reproduction, the more accelerated the cancer is going to be, right? And this is kind of part of the mechanism of even creating cancer to begin with. And then intermittent fasting really helps with chronic disease because, again, all of these mechanisms right here are all major factors with chronic disease. On top of that, I didn't even talk about the gut, right? So we already mentioned its impact on helping reduce stress on the gut, and that plays a big role with chronic disease. And so we look at the mitochondria because when we fast, or if you're doing some sort of like a ketogenic diet, if you're doing high intensity exercise, for example, things like that, we help boost up the amount of mitochondria. And we're talking about fasting today. And so fasting is one of the best things we can do to preserve our mitochondria, to protect them from becoming damaged, and also to increase the amount of mitochondria and to improve the functionality of the mitochondria. And the better our functionality and the overall amount of mitochondria, the reduced risk of all these different diseases. And you can see in particular, okay, as you can see with the chart, the orange ones are the most significantly influenced, right? So I should say chronic fatigue. It says chromatic fatigue. Huntington's, autism, Parkinson's, mitochondrial disease, of course, Lou Gehrig's, Alzheimer's, right? And then there's evidence talking about fibromyalgia, cardiomyopathy, epilepsy, cerebral palsy, developmental delay, diabetes, things like that also being impacted by mitochondrial issues. And so when we look at autophagy, okay, autophagy, again, is this process of cell digestion where basically the body breaks down its own cells and uses the raw materials in order to produce new cells. So as this slide says, it's a way our cells clean house and they recycle the trash that's in there. And so very, very important that we've got a good, healthy cellular autophagy process. Super important here. How the body controls blood sugar levels, you can see. So very, very important. Insulin, we were talking about, pulls sugar out of the bloodstream and into the cells. And so this is kind of how insulin works. When our body's insulin resistant, we need more insulin in order to get the sugar out of the cells. And again, we talked about that, really stimulates this drive for cell reproduction, causes more inflammation in the body. So really problematic. So you can see normal cell division. Okay, one cell, over a period of time, turns into 2 cells. Okay, and then if one of those cells, their lifespan, for example, that cell starts to get old and they've got a certain amount of DNA and mitochondrial damage, Well, there's a process called apoptosis that every cell has pre-programmed within it, where that cell commits cell suicide, kills itself, because it says, you know what, my DNA, my mitochondria are defective. I'm not going to be a good resource for the host, for the whole body. I'm going to be a threat to it. So I might as well end my life, because the life of all the cells in this organism making up this human body um, is more important than my own life. And so it sacrifices itself. So very selfless, and very much, focused on the good of the whole. Whereas cancer cells, they've lost that apoptotic switch, and they've got this drive for fast cell reproduction, and they're not producing apoptosis. So they've got this DNA damage, mitochondrial damage, and in a sense, the father mother cell, and then it starts producing daughter cells, and those daughter cells also have the DNA damage, and they just keep reproducing. And so normally all of these cells would commit apoptosis, would commit cell death, but because that switch has been shut down, there's P53 gene and other factors that are involved in that, damage and mutation to some of these genetic factors. They just continue to reproduce out of control. And so we look at like the difference between normal and cancer cells. We know that, normal cells, you can see like the nuclei, small uniformly shaped nuclei, relatively large cytoplasmic volume. Cytoplasma is basically what's in the cell other than the nucleus, right? So all that volume between the cell membrane, the outer portion, and the nucleus. Whereas with cancer cells, they have a larger nucleus. It's not circular, as you can see there, jagged. It's basically very variable in shape. And then you can see as normal cells are dividing, they're arranged in discrete tissues and kind of the same size, whereas cancer cells can be really, really asymmetrical, disorganized. And so because again, they're not functioning normally. Okay. They're just really in it for survival, and just kind of, they're greedy cells, just pulling out all kinds of different nutrients from the body and just thinking about themselves and not the good of the whole. Normal cells may possess differentiated cell structures, okay, with real defined roles. So a kidney cell is going to be functioning as a kidney cell, whereas a tumor cell, when it becomes a kidney cell that becomes a tumor cell, is not going to function like a normal healthy kidney cell. A blood cell, like in leukemia, that should be a blood cell, is not going to function like a good healthy blood cell, because it hasn't fully differentiated to have the specialized function of that cell. Okay, very important. And then normal cells, you have lower amounts of dividing cells, so they're not constantly dividing, and they're easier to keep under control, and as you can see, easier to have demarcation between tissues. Okay, so we know this is lung tissue, this is heart tissue, this is connective tissue around the lung, as opposed to the cancer cells. They're just really dividing fast. They have poorly defined boundaries. And so we don't know the difference. As the lung cancer spreads out into the connective tissue, they all look like one tissue, because, again, it's just abnormal cells. They haven't fully differentiated into what their parent tissue should be. And so here's a interesting study here. This is a journal in Nature, 2017, starving leukemia to induce differentiation, right? So leukemia is a blood cell cancer. And we know with this that, of course, these cells are not differentiating. So oftentimes we look at blood work, they're really, really large and abnormal. So they've got really large red blood cell width and size and volume, and they're not functioning like true red blood cells. So they're not actually bringing oxygen to the cells. Obviously, could cause a lot of problems, right? Every tissue needs that oxygen. So what this is saying is that, hey, one of the most important things we can do, this study showed, was actually starving, fasting. Doing fasting helps stimulate the differentiation process of these blood cells. And this has also been shown in other cancer forms as well. So fasting helps induce that differentiation. It also helps induce apoptosis, which is this programmed cell death. So not just the autophagy, but also apoptosis, where the cell itself says, hey, I'm ready to give up my life for the good of the whole. Okay, this is a normal, natural process, and the immune system goes in, hunts it and regulates it. Or, the cell just really just just dies in general, just kind of kills itself. As you can see here, enzymes break down the nucleus and the cell emits signals. Okay, so the enzymes within the cell itself start to break down the nucleus, and then that signals like an aroma, the macrophage, which comes in and kind of finishes the job. So cancer cells have lost this ability to have apoptosis, whereas normal healthy cells are doing this all the time. It's happening all the time in our bodies. And so again, we talked about different types of fasting. I'm a big fan of fat fasting, okay? And fat fasting is basically where you're able to consume fats. You pretty much are restricting protein and net carbs. Like, for example, I'll fat fast, but I'll munch on some radishes or celery. And so I'm getting a little bit of fiber in there, but not, any significant carbohydrate that's going to throw off my blood sugar, my insulin levels, and compromise my fast. Same thing with fat fasting, whether you're doing like a fat-fueled coffee or keto matcha green tea or something like that, where you've got things like grass-fed butter in there, maybe coconut oil or MCT oil or something like that, you'll get a lot of these benefits, okay? And really the reason why I'm an advocate of this is more comfortable than water fasting in general. It's a lot more comfortable and more enjoyable. It can also help with moving the bowels better, right? Like doing coffee or munching on some radishes or celery, just the act of chewing, that peristaltic action can help induce peristalsis in the gut. And so I find that people have a much better fasting experience when they're able to move whatever waste is in their bowels out of their system. And for some people, they really struggle with that. It's a little harder, okay? And therefore, doing chewing or doing fat fasting with like keto matcha green tea or a bulletproof coffee kind of thing, fat fuel coffee, can be really helpful for that. And of course, you're also taking in some calories that are going to help basically produce ketones and keep you satiated. And it's a little bit easier for your body to do that than breaking down stored body fat. Of course, that's obviously very helpful, and you will still be calorie restricted. Obviously, we don't recommend just eating full meals of fat. It's very small amounts while you're fasting in order to just get that satiation benefit and also to help induce bowel activity. Improves insulin sensitivity because we're taking out the carbohydrate and the protein, the things that really stimulate insulin. So the cell membranes are able to repair. We have less inflammation in the body in general. And inflammation, insulin sensitivity go hand in hand. The more inflammation we have, the worse insulin sensitivity we're going to have. The less inflammation we have, the better insulin sensitivity, and vice versa, because the worse our insulin sensitivity, every time we eat, we're going to be producing rampant amounts of inflammation. And that's why it's even more important if you are insulin resistant to really work with a coach on how to fast effectively, because it's going to really reverse that condition. Of course, stimulates ketone production, and also we achieve small amounts of autophagy. So we're going to get the benefit of the autophagy, not as strong as when we water fast. Okay, so I do want people to understand that this sort of fasting is very comfortable. You'll get a tremendous amount of benefit from it. However, you won't get quite as much autophagy as you will when you water fast. So it's also a great idea to do something like a 5 to 10 day water fast once or twice a year. Is a really, really good idea. Well, first I want to show you this study right here. This is a cool study, Breast Cancer Research and Treatment 2013, April. It says the protective effect of intermittent calorie restriction on mammary, so that's breast tumor growth, is not compromised by consumption of a high-fat diet during refeeding. So basically, this is talking about how, when we're on kind of like an intermittent fast and we are restricting calories for a period of time, like doing a fat fast or doing, even just eating in like a six hour eating window or 6 to 8 hour eating window, but doing high fat during that refeeding window, it doesn't compromise the protective effect of intermittent calorie restriction. Also doing something like the bulletproof coffee or something like that, it's not going to compromise the benefits of the fast when it comes to basically tumor growth. in this particular case, breast tumor. But I would say pretty much all cases, it's going to be beneficial. All right. And so benefits of prolonged fasting. And this is kind of, I want to really break this down for you guys too, and like try to explain really when the best time to do what type of fast is. But when we fast for 4 or more days, especially, we're able to get into a really deep state of ketosis. Our cell reproduction slows down significantly. We get really high levels of cellular autophagy and stem cell production. So we don't get as much stem cell production when we're doing a fat fast or intermittent fast, but that really goes up dramatically. And these are important things to understand. Okay, now you can do, and I would recommend really for everybody to do something like a 4, 5, or like I was saying, 7, even up to 10-day fast, water fast every year would be great. Okay, doing something like that would be fantastic. I'll be doing a 5-day water fast here some point in the next few months. Okay, for me, somebody that's really thin, I don't think the unless you are battling a chronic disease, you really need to go beyond that, because we're already really, really lean. So it's not like we have a tremendous amount of our own body fat to break down during that period of time. But just doing that alone is going to give you a really good stem cell stimulation, really high levels of autophagy that are going to take place. Going to really slow down cell reproduction, stimulate that immune system to help break down cancer cells in the body. So really good cancer prevention strategy. Now, if you've got a slow growing tumor, I would recommend doing something like a 5 to 10-day water fast twice a year. Okay, so benign type of tumor or prostate enlargement or something like that, it's probably a good idea to do something like that twice a year, and then just incorporate intermittent fasting into your life, where you do like a 16 to 18 hour fast and a 6 to 8 hour eating window, and maybe a 1-day 24-hour fat fast where you're not doing protein or carbohydrate from, let's say, 6 p.m. to 6 p.m., right? 6 p.m. Sunday to 6 p.m. Monday would be an example of that. And that can really be powerful for a benign sort of tumor. Whereas if you have a really fast growing tumor, so the faster the growth of the tumor, the more powerful fasting can be, and the more necessary fasting is. So fast growing tumors are really hard to slow down. We need to really focus on fasting. And this is counterintuitive, because a lot of times people with fast growing cancers are also wasting away. They've got cachexia, they're losing weight quickly. And so they're very worried about losing weight, or obviously. And so fasting is not typically recommended in the medical world. However, I'm a huge fan of it. And so, believe it or not, fasting is one of the best ways to stop cachexia, because again, it slows down the cell reproduction, slows down the ability of the cancer cells to grow and expand and cause more damage to the body. So, huge fan of doing this. And I, in my cancer cleanse program, actually have my fast growing tumor individuals with fast growing cancers doing a 3-day fast. They eat 4 days a week. They do 3 days fasting each week. So we do that every single week. And for some people, depending on the individual, when I'm working with them one-on-one, this is not just in our program, but I will have them fast sometimes 7 to 21 days, doing some sort of a water fast or maybe a green juice fast or fat fast or something like that, 7 to 21 days or longer sometimes, to slow down the tumor growth. You're not going to waste away from fasting in a first world country where food is available. Okay, like if you're working with somebody, you're going to figure out when you need to eat. That person will help you with, okay, we've gone enough. Let's have a feeding period of time here. So I don't think that's what we need to be concerned about. What we need to be concerned about is the rate of growth of the cancer. And fasting is a great way to slow that process down. So anyways, hopefully that was helpful for you guys. So in my Cancer Cleanse program, I really go through a lot of this in detail. And I talk about, basically as a preventative strategy, doing something like a 24 to 36 hour fat fast, really good idea. Or even up to a 40-hour fat fast every week. Really good idea. That would be like Saturday night, you eat dinner, and then you don't eat protein or carbs again until Monday at lunch, right? So you would skip all day Saturday or Sunday. You might have a fat fuel coffee or two, or you might have a green juice, but without any fruit other than lemons and limes. So real low carb. But You're definitely not going to have any protein. And we also bring in the plant-based ketogenic diet, which is a lower protein nutrition plan anyways, into this in this program, because I've found that protein can be a major stimulator of the mTOR pathway, genetic pathway that's involved with cancer. And so, anyways, really excited about this program. Been able to help a lot of people really navigate their cancer journey. And you can use this program with, if you're doing conventional therapy, chemotherapy and radiation, things like that. This program is huge. Really is going to help you get better benefits from those. If you're choosing to take a natural route, then this is also huge, right? Because we got to press the tumor. It's a press pulse system. So we've got to press it with metabolic therapy like intermittent fasting, plant-based keto, and then we pulse it with oxidative therapies like chemotherapy, radiation, in the conventional model. In the natural model, more things like hyperbaric oxygen, IV vitamin C, IV ozone. These would be pulse therapies that create massive oxidation in the cancer cells. So anyways, this is a helpful program. So you can check that. I got a link below the video if you're watching this on YouTube. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my email newsletter, definitely do so. You get my digestion energy quick start guide, my 10 fat burning dessert recipes, and subscribe to my YouTube channel here. And be sure to leave a comment on how you enjoyed this video, what was the most impactful thing you got out of it. And of course, if you do have any questions, we're happy to answer those. And we do that throughout the week. So anyways, hopefully guys got a lot out of this, and we'll see you on a future online training.